Threequels can often be a daunting undertaking for even the most accomplished of directors, and even for franchises with decent first two installments. Candyman 3: Day of the Dead takes a fairly offensive stab at the Mexican holiday, while Leatherface: The Texas Chainsaw Massacre 3 doesn't live up to the pre-release marketing hype about it being banned and the most controversial movie ever made. It was neither. Even Scream 3, despite not necessarily being bad per se, is a low point considering how strong the first two movies are. On the flip side though, Romero's Day of the Dead is a solid follow-up to both Night and Dawn of the Dead, while Sam Raimi's Evil Dead threequel, Army of Darkness, is a total blast. So, after Hostel Part 2 grossed significantly less than the hit opening chapter, did that put any notions of a third part in serious doubt? Well, to put it simply,
what? No!
However, that didn't mean that significant changes wouldn't be made, mainly with the absence of Eli Roth as director. And it was also going straight to what used to be the death knell for movies, directly to home entertainment. Also gone was the Slovakian setting of the first two movies, which the local tourist board must have been delighted with. Also, instead of horn dog fellas or unfortunate college girls, this time we're heading to Sin City to attend the bachelor party from hell. Could the movie buck the recurring trend of threequelitis and deliver a killer final chapter, for now at least? Let's find out here on What the Happened to Hostel Part 3.
Before we continue with our video, here's a reminder to click the Store tab on any of our JoBlo channels and browse our collection of the latest and freshest designs in our merch store. Go get you some.
Of course, the major shift from parts 1 and 2 was the absence of director Eli Roth, who does have a writing credit and was unofficially one of the movie's producers. He must have been delighted with the success of the first two entries, especially part 1, but as he described when part 3 was announced, he was ready to move on to other projects, saying, "That's another one like Cabin Fever 2. The studio had made a lot of money with it, so they want to keep going, and the fans, there's demand for it. If I started something and other people want to continue it, go for it. I'm just not involved in any way with Hostel 3. There's no negativity about it. I just said, I put everything in my life for 3 years into these movies. I've said everything I have to say with it. I feel very lucky I got to make them, and the fans responded the way they did. And if you guys want to continue it, great, go ahead." Credit to the guy for calling it quits while he was ahead, but was it the right move? Taking the directing reins on the movie was American screenwriter, director, producer, and actor Scott Spiegel, who was one of the executive producers on both Hostel and Hostel Part 2. Before he helped envision the brutal maiming of poor, unsuspecting victims of the elite hunting club, he was best known for small roles in The Evil Dead and Evil Dead 2, for which he co-wrote the screenplay with longtime friend Sam Raimi. Spiegel already had some experience of helming direct-to-video movies, with 1999's sequel From Dusk Till Dawn 2, Texas Blood Money. It had nowhere near the riotous, titty-twisting narrative of the first movie, but it was fun if nothing else. It had vampires, it had people killing said vampires, plus it probably filled a gap on those blockbuster shelves back in the day. So I suppose it served a purpose. With the movie taking a direct route to home entertainment platforms and its limited budget, the producers had to rely upon relatively unknown names to bolster the cast. Nowadays, the DTV route is flourishing and regarded as a successful playground for bigger names. Just ask Nick Cage. However, back in the early noughties, this wasn't necessarily the case. The main cast is led by Brian Hallisey as Scott, Kit Pardew as Carter, Skylar Stone as Mike, and John Hensley as Justin, who play the four pals who head off to Vegas for their usual hedonism. They're joined by Sarah Habel and Zule Henao as Kendra and Nikki, two escorts Carter paid to have sex with Scott, the bachelor boy. The movie's narrative kicks off in Las Vegas, where a guy called Travis, played by Chris Coy, enters a hotel room where a Ukrainian couple, Victor and Anka, are staying. However, it transpires that Travis is part of the nefarious elite hunting club, and after drugging the couple with a spiked beer, they find themselves taken hostage by the evil organisation. Victor wakes up in a cell in an abandoned building and watches on helplessly as Anka is dragged out of her cell by two guards. What follows isn't the usual Vegas throwdown you'd expect from a visit to Sin City, as, apart from a couple of exterior shots, we never really get to see much of the place. I guess it doesn't matter where you shoot grisly torture scenes, but it would have been good to have seen some of the action go down in Vegas itself. Part 3 is basically a nastier variation of the Hangover movies, just without any of the invention and clever wit that some of those films had in spades. On the face of it, Hostel Part 3 sticks to the well-trodden formula of the first two movies, at least as far as the narrative is concerned. The cliches of the first two parts are at least switched to a certain degree, such as the aforementioned opening scene, and while the kills are a lot less disturbing than Roth's entries, there's still a relatively pleasing amount of gore on display. Unfortunately, however, what lets Part 3 down is that it does feel like a direct-to-video sequel. Roth's visual style is conspicuous by its absence here, and it's not just the cast that they hide on the cheap. Scott Spiegel is a very capable director, that much is clear, but he doesn't display any sort of visual flourish or invention with the tools at his grisly disposal. There's very little use of his camera here, with static shots the order of the day, it would seem. This probably wouldn't bother most horror fans, but along with some flat lighting and cinematography, the lack of a director with a distinct visual style is very apparent. Also, while the kills are sometimes pretty gnarly, I'm looking at you, face sliced off scene, some of the other deaths are a bit tame, like being suffocated by cockroaches. Overall, Hostel Part 3 is an interesting, if not largely inventive trilogy closer for the torture porn franchise.
Ours always wins.
Hostel Part 3 was released on DVD and VOD on December 27th, 2011 in the US and on January the 18th, 2012 in Europe. Over at Rotten Tomatoes, if you like to peruse the stats on that particular site, the movie has an approval rating of 67% based upon only 6 reviews, most of which are actually quite positive. Being a direct-to-video title, there's little in the way of reviews from the more traditional sources. However, the UK edition of The Independent had some positive words for the movie, saying, "Think of an extremely gruesome version of The Hangover. It's not going to win any Oscars, but if you like gore, it's certainly worth a watch." The general consensus is that the film, for obvious reasons, didn't revolutionise horror, or the way you see the torture porn genre. However, it proved that there was just enough left in the franchise to squeeze a Part 3 out that is admittedly low budget and somewhat uninspired, but at least has some fairly decent gore splattered over parts of it. Overall, the Hostel franchise is a fun, grisly departure from the other subgenres of horror when they were first released. Eli Roth proved that he had a good eye for horror, and for better or worse, depending on your perspective, he led the way for torture porn to become a significant outlet for creators at the time, and also for the studios to make a quick buck. Eli Roth has recently confirmed that he intends to return to the world of Hostel, as he believes there's still much to be discovered in the shenanigans of the elite hunting club, saying in an interview that, "There's a lot more to do. I'd love to go back to Hostel at some point. They're a part of me." He continues, "They're like my children. I feel like I've ignored them for too long, and I'd love to go back to them in some way. I have ideas." When asked if he would direct the movies himself, Roth confirmed, "I would direct it. I don't want it in anyone else's hands." However, the most important aspect of these retrospectives is what your opinion of the movies we cover is. So, did Hostel Part 3 manage to be a fun ride into Sin City for a stag do from hell, or should it have gone straight to the bargain basement bin to rot with other DTV titles? As usual, let us know in the comments, and we'll see you beautiful gore hounds next time.
One way out of here, motherfucker.